I heard them before I saw them, and by the time I realized how many there were, it was too late to pretend they would lose interest. I was cutting across the open space between two apartment blocks in Pripyat when the first bark echoed off the concrete. It wasn't aggressive at first, just sharp and sudden enough to make me stop walking. I turned toward the sound, expecting to see one stray dog at the edge of the courtyard. What I saw instead were shapes moving between the skeletal trees near the building entrance across from me. 3 of them stepped into the open. They weren't thin like abandoned pets. They were heavy, thick-necked, low to the ground, and alert. One of them locked eyes with me immediately and didn't break contact. I stood still. Running is the worst thing you can do with dogs you don't understand. I knew that. Everyone knows that. I kept my arms relaxed at my sides and tried to make myself look bigger. I told myself they were just territorial. I had wandered too close to whatever they claimed as theirs. Then a 4th one came out from behind a concrete planter, and a 5th. The barking changed. It wasn't random anymore. It was coordinated. Short bursts, like communication. My stomach dropped. It was pure instinct. I was alone in the middle of a decaying city after sunset, with no one within shouting distance. I slowly stepped backward. The dog in front of me lowered its head slightly and took a step forward to match me. They weren't scared. That was the part that settled heavily in my chest. These weren't strays that would scatter at a loud noise. They were comfortable here. This was their territory. The silence of the abandoned buildings belonged to them. I glanced behind me without turning my back. The courtyard stretched empty for maybe 50 meters before narrowing into another cluster of buildings. Open space meant no barriers, no doors close enough to reach quickly. I had made the mistake of crossing the center instead of sticking to walls. Another bark, closer this time. One of them started circling slightly to my left. That's when I understood that this wasn't curiosity. It was assessment. I bent slowly and picked up a loose chunk of concrete from the ground without taking my eyes off them. The movement triggered immediate reaction. 2 of them lunged forward a step, not attacking, but testing. I threw the concrete hard toward the one closest to me. It hit the pavement short of its feet with a loud crack. The dogs flinched for half a second, then regrouped. They didn't retreat. I felt my heartbeat climb into my throat. There's a specific kind of fear that comes when you realize something is evaluating you as prey. It's cold, clear. You start calculating distances without meaning to. You measure how fast you can sprint. You think about whether you can climb something quickly enough. The one on my left moved farther out, cutting off the angle I would have used to reach the nearest stairwell entrance. They were spreading. I stepped backward again, and my heel caught uneven pavement. I nearly lost balance. The sudden shift made them surge forward as a group, barking louder now, sharper. I shouted without thinking, a loud, deep sound I hoped would carry authority. It echoed off the apartment blocks and came back to me hollow and useless. They didn't stop. I turned and ran. I knew I shouldn't have, but staying still felt worse. The sound behind me exploded into motion. Claws on concrete. Multiple bodies accelerating at once. I sprinted toward the nearest building entrance, boots slipping slightly on debris. The doorway was dark, the stairwell beyond it pitch black. But it was the only barrier within reach. I hit the entrance and pivoted inside, grabbing the broken metal door and yanking it inward as hard as I could. It scraped loudly across the floor. I shoved it enough to narrow the opening. The first dog reached the doorway. It didn't hesitate. It slammed into the gap, teeth snapping against metal. Another one rammed its body against the door from the outside. The force pushed it inward several inches. My hands were shaking as I braced my weight against it. They weren't bluffing. One of them forced its head partially through the opening, jaws snapping at the air. I kicked toward it instinctively, connecting with its snout. It recoiled with a sharp yelp, but only for a second. I realized quickly that the door wouldn't hold if they kept pushing together. I abandoned it and bolted up the stairs 2 at a time. The stairwell amplified the sound of claws echoing against concrete. They followed. I reached the first landing and looked down. 2 had entered fully. The others were trying to squeeze through the doorway. I climbed faster. By the second floor, my legs were burning. My breathing felt loud enough to attract everything in the city. I darted into the nearest apartment and slammed the warped wooden door shut behind me. There was no lock. I shoved a broken cabinet against it with everything I had. Seconds later, bodies hit the door from the other side. The wood splintered near the handle, not breaking through, but testing, scratching, snarling. I backed away slowly, scanning the apartment. Windows were shattered, curtains long gone, furniture overturned and rotting. The balcony door at the far end hung partially open. If they broke through that main door, I would have nowhere to go. The impact came again, harder this time. The cabinet shifted. I moved to the balcony and stepped outside carefully, looking down. 2 floors, concrete below. Not survivable if I landed wrong, but better than being cornered. Another slam against the apartment door. I climbed over the balcony railing and lowered myself as far as my arms would allow. My grip slipped slightly from sweat. I let go. The fall knocked the air out of me when I hit. Pain shot up my ankle, but nothing snapped. I rolled and scrambled to my feet. The barking resumed almost immediately from above. They were faster than I expected. I ran again, this time toward a narrow alley between buildings where debris was thick and uneven. My lungs were burning now. My ankle protested with every step. I heard them close behind me again. The alley narrowed into a dead end. For half a second, I froze. Then I saw a rusted fire escape ladder bolted to the wall. It was missing the bottom section, too high to reach from a standstill. I ran at the wall and jumped, grabbing the lowest rung with my fingertips. My injured ankle almost gave out as I pulled myself up. A dog lunged upward, jaws snapping inches from my boot. I kicked down hard and felt teeth scrape rubber. Adrenaline carried me the rest of the way. I climbed without looking down. They circled below, barking and jumping, but they couldn't reach. I stayed there, gripping the cold metal railing, staring down at them as they paced the alley. Their patience scared me more than their aggression. They weren't leaving. Eventually, one by one, they drifted back into the shadows between buildings. I waited another 10 minutes before climbing down. I didn't finish exploring that night. I didn't go back to the open courtyards again. The thing about abandoned places is you think the danger is structural. Radiation, collapse, military patrol. You don't think about territory. That city isn't empty. And out there, after dark, you're not the one in control. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow. And if you want more unsettling stories, there are 2 more waiting for you on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, sleep well.